Hey everybody, good evening from Los Angeles. I'm Jacob Soboroff in for Chris Hayes. Tonight we have a stark reminder of just how far Donald Trump will go to steal the election. Remember, earlier this year he issued an executive order attacking mail-in voting, deputizing the Postal Service and the Department of Homeland Security to decide who gets a mail-in ballot. Multiple courts in multiple lawsuits have put that order on hold, but today the Supreme Court lifted one of those injunctions. There's another that remains in place nationwide for the moment. We're going to have much more on that in the show, including a discussion with California's Attorney General Rob Bonta, who has sued Trump to stop his order. This is all yet another reminder that Trump is not, as my friend Chris Hayes so often says, doing anything to win new votes. And on that note, he seems to be absolutely determined to do everything he can to make things more expensive for Americans, more expensive for you. From his tariffs to his overseas wars, to his corruption, but it all looks like it's about to get much, much worse. The United States is in an unprecedented open trade war with our neighbor to the north, Canada. Canada, America's second biggest trading partner. Canadian officials walked away from the negotiations with the Trump administration late last week. They let 50% tariffs kick in on billions of dollars worth of exports to the United States, everything from hockey sticks to tongue depressors. And Donald Trump is now vowing to expand those tariffs, and Canada promises to respond in kind with tariffs on goods from the United States that kick in on September 8th. And it will surely be another blow to the United States economy and to your finances as it drives up costs and kills new investments. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says his nation left negotiations after the Trump administration hit them with a bunch of onerous last-minute demands, including, get this, limits on Canada's bilingual language requirements for imports in a country where they speak English and French, and constraints on their ability to make trade deals with other countries. But Donald Trump's 51st state, all that talk, let's just say it didn't help.
An attitude at the negotiation table that Canada is a subsidiary of the United States. The Canadian industry is going to be disadvantaged relative to American industry. That we're going to set up terms so that over time, Canadian industry is going to face constant headwinds. That's not something we're going to accept. And that's before you get to constraints on our ability to do what the rest of the world wants, which is to sign trade deals with Canada. And that's before the very fundamental issues on culture.
Carney said the trade war could last well beyond the U.S. midterm elections. And Trump says he's going to add tariffs to car parts from Canada. But Doug Ford is the premier of Ontario, Canada. He says that'll only backfire.
They'll have multiple auto plants closed down if that's the case. He says he wants to attack the auto part manufacturers. Like, maybe he just doesn't understand how parts go back and forth 8 times. It would actually shut down your auto plants in the U.S. We could put massive pain on the U.S. President Trump underestimates us, and that's the biggest mistake.
Did you notice that? Did you notice how he caught himself there at the end? He did not want to say the U.S. when he was talking about Donald Trump. Trump called Ford, by the way, a flunky on social media today. And Ford, I have to say, he was pretty unbothered.
The president taking very specific aim at you in deeply personal ways.
Good.
Well, also, why is that good?
Well, good. He can, you know something, I've been in this game a lot longer than he has. I got skin on me like an alligator. And you think an insult from him hurts me? Well, bring it on, buddy. I'm ready. Bring it on. You know something? I've dealt with guys like you my whole life. And guess what? You all become losers because you're a loser.
Oof, because you're a loser. And the costs of this trade war will also fall disproportionately on some of the biggest swing states in this year's midterm elections. Big Canadian trading partners like Michigan and Ohio and Maine, where I was in Maine yesterday with my family, and without trying, I took these photos. We ran into 2 separate grassroots protests by critics of the administration. This is a state where longtime Republican Senator Susan Collins is fighting for re-election, and Donald Trump's trade war could very well cost her the race there.
I I still think imposing new tariffs on Canada is a mistake. We produce a lot in Maine, our blueberries, our potatoes, our lobster, our lumber that is processed across the border. If it comes back with a huge tariff on it, perhaps as much as 50%, that increases the cost of eating, building homes, and merchandising our best-known products.
I'm telling you, I just saw it myself. People are not happy in Maine, but it is not just swing states. Today, MSNOW reporter Alex Tabbitt was in Fort Dodge, Iowa. This is a state that went for Trump in all three of his presidential elections. Alex talked with a two-time Trump voter who, when you see this, he is really struggling in large part due to Donald Trump's very own economy.
As a mother, what is it like living with these economic conditions?
It's hard. It makes me feel like I'm a horrible mother sometimes because I'm stressing about what I'm gonna do, or do I have enough money to put gas in, or do I need to buy eggs and milk for my child, or do I need to not go to work every day to make that money because gas prices are so expensive.
If you could pick one word to describe how you feel about President Trump's leadership right now.
Angry, hurt, confused. We hear all this stuff, and like I said, it's like a broken record. I'm angry, maybe not angry. I don't know. I guess the word sad, angry and sad, upset, hurt, all of them. I guess I don't have just one word.
What she said, this is how people overwhelmingly feel in this country. In any other administration triggering a trade war with Canada, I will say it again, Canada would be an unthinkable, self-inflicted wound, but it's not even close to Trump's only major self-own today. There was also his new pivot on Iran. This is the war that he launched, that he has depleted U.S. weapons stockpiles because of, and exhausted American service members. And now he is counting on economic pressure to end the war somehow.
Today, at President Trump's direction, the United States Treasury has begun Operation Economic Outcast, an unprecedented campaign against the Islamic Republic of Iran and its enablers. In the Second World War, D-Day marked the historic beginning of a campaign with our allies to target and drive the enemy from its positions, including those in third countries. Today, in that same spirit, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe.
Okay, Operation Economic Outcast. Operation Economic Outcast. You think that U.S. planners might regret that name down the line? It is not entirely clear who the economic outcast will be in the long term, but the plan to impose even harsher sanctions on Iran, that could actually threaten the global economy. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent admitted that today when he answered a question about his choice of war metaphors.
You described this as an economic D-Day, but D-Day wasn't a threat of an invasion, and the U.S. didn't give a timeline to Germany. So why not impose the sanctions today?
Well, we are giving everyone the opportunity to remedy bad behavior. Why would I want to blow up the global financial system?
Right. No government should want to blow up the global financial system, just as no government should want its people to suffer from greater inflation and scarcity. But if that was what Donald Trump and his administration wanted, what would they be doing any differently than they are doing today? Senator Ruben Gallego is a Democrat of Arizona. He sits on a number of committees, including Veterans Affairs and Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, and he joins me now. Senator, it's so good to see you. Thanks for being here. Let's just start with the trade war. You got it. With Canada, and you called it, I think you called it, the dumbest trade war ever earlier today.
Yes.
How bad do you think this could get?
It could get very bad. Look, it's one of our biggest trading partners in Arizona. And again, this president doesn't understand, we can't just suddenly create an aluminum factory, right? We can't just create steel mills out of nowhere. All those pieces of aluminum, all those car parts that go into American car parts are now going to go up in price, and or they're just going to be scarce. So you're going to have a lot of factors going to slow down and shut down. And in time and a moment when you want to have an economic D-Day against Iran, that means you need more friends. And, Secretary Bessent is sometimes right, but he can also be the dumbest man in the room at the same time. And he must at least remember that in D-Day, Canada was our ally then, too. And the other thing that really matters about allies is that you need to have relationships with them before you actually need them. You need to be trust with them. You need to be working with them. You need to actually have a certain level of comfort and trust with each other that when it comes to these very hard times, then they will actually stick with you. What you don't do is try to make them fight for you at the point of a gun, because that is when you lose them. So right now, this whole idea that we're going to have the whole world economic order that's suddenly going to just back Donald Trump after all the bullying that he's done all year, in order for us to win a war that we should not have started in the first place, after again continuing to threaten the world order altogether, is just foolhardy and dumb. And this is what happens. You need friends in good times, so that way they're there in the bad times. You need to be doing things with your friends to actually build trust and build prosperity together, so that way it is easier for you to work together when things are hard. This is the dumbest administration this country has ever seen, and we're all going to pay for it.
People in Maine, where I was over the last week, very much share that sentiment, and it's not hard to see the trade that goes on between particularly Maine and their neighbors to the north in Canada. But tell me more about how Arizonans are talking about the tariffs. Just more generally, where is it having the biggest impact in your state?
Well, we've had a total downturn in our economy when it comes to especially tourism, because we had many, many, many years of thousands of Canadians have been coming to Arizona during winter. And before that, they were just coming for vacation, and then they actually started many businesses, right? We had a lot of cross-border business that had been going on. In fact, we actually have cross-border business going from Arizona to Mexico, Mexico back to Arizona, and then to Canada. And now what you're seeing is a whole supply chain that is being taxed, that's being burdened by essentially somebody's ego. We are paying more. We're paying more, and we're having less people employed because of the president's ego, not because there's some kind of economic benefit that we're all going to end up getting in the end. What we're getting is just more pain so this president can feel stronger. That's the last thing we need, is a president that's just there basically trying to boost his ego, while at the same time we're all going to be poorer.
I wanted to get your reaction to something that I spoke about at the top of the show and that we've been talking about all day, as it relates to mail-in voting. I'm sure you've seen the Supreme Court lifting one of the injunctions on the president's executive order that restricted mail-in voting. There's another one that remains in place. I want to remind everybody nationwide. Where do you see that leaving us tonight? Arizona has been in the middle of the election denialism push by this president. How is Arizona going to prepare for what the executive order could bring in November? How concerned are you?
Look, I'm pretty concerned. Early voting and vote by mail has been popular in Arizona for almost 40 years. It is used by Republicans and Democrats. Actually, it was instituted by Republicans way back in the day to make sure that they could actually solidify their vote. Now, 80% of Arizonans vote by mail. This is just one big conspiracy theory. This president knows he's losing the election. This president knows he's losing the election badly because he's a horrible president, and he's not even trying to change the direction of this. So instead of actually trying to change the conversation, try to show that he's actually fighting for people instead of just fighting for more corruption and grifting more for his family, he's just going to try to change who can vote. And the way he's going to do that is going to make it more and more difficult to vote by mail. So yes, we're going to fight this, by the way, in the courts. There's still some time to do that. But it's also, at the end of the day, not going to work. Arizonans, particularly, are very smart. We're going to figure out how to vote. We will walk our ballots in. We will go and show up in person. This guy is going to lose, and all the Republicans that are backing him are going to lose heavily. And let's remember, the only reason we are in this situation is because we have certain senators and certain members of Congress in these small, very small margins that continually back him up. In Arizona, you have Eli Crane, you have Juan Ciscomani that are consistently giving him every vote that he needs. In the Senate, you have Susan Collins, who she talks about these tariffs. She's the head of appropriations. She could be taking care of this right now. She is part of the problem, and I'm sure she's very concerned about the tariffs, like she's concerned about things all the time, but she certainly is not concerned enough about the people of Maine to actually do something and stop these tariffs. They're going to hurt our economy and hurt the people of Maine.
Yeah, that's certainly what people had to say when I was visiting over the course of the last week, and we're going to keep such a close eye on Arizona as it relates to the integrity of the vote there. Senator Ruben Gallego, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Good night.
Still to come, everybody, Gary, Indiana has been without power for almost 2 full weeks. Grammy winner Freddie Gibbs will join me on what his hometown needs most right at this very moment. But first, Beto O'Rourke on why this might finally be the year for a blue Texas. That's coming up next.
Your hair was there through every chapter of your life. But as we age, our hair begins to thin and shed more quickly.
This month, just this month. So you can see why Donald Trump is now pulling out all the stops for Senator Darlene Graham, who he is backing in a South Carolina runoff election that's happening tomorrow. He held both a rally in the state on Friday and a tele-rally tonight for his candidate. She's running to keep the seat she was appointed to after the death of her brother, Lindsey Graham. But Darlene Graham has had some stumbles.
Senator, are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, so, but I do support the military.
Oh boy, that was awkward. That answer has led to at least some voters considering changing their vote.
Before the debate, were you going to vote for Darlene Graham?
Yes.
And that the debate changed the calculus. Talk about that.
Yeah, that answer just blew me away. I couldn't believe she didn't have a clue.
So because of that, you're considering Ralph Norman now?
Yeah. I'm still on the fence.
Beto O'Rourke is a former Democratic congressman for Texas. He is the founder of Powered by People, a progressive voter mobilization effort, and he joins me now. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
Congressman, I want to talk about Texas, where there is a heck of a Senate race playing out as well. But I just wanted to first ask you, what do you make of the fact that Donald Trump is so desperate to elect Lindsey Graham's sister?
I don't know what to make of what's going on in South Carolina, but that clip you just played reminded me of Rick Perry's presidential run, the oops moment in one of his debates. I don't know how you come back from something like that, but I guess we'll find out. Here in Texas, you know, he's behind Ken Paxton, the Republican nominee for Senate, who is a total train wreck. He is central casting as perhaps the most corrupt villain you could hope to find in the state of Texas. And he's not really running much of a campaign, and it's an open question as to whether, even with Trump's help, or the $200 million that Ted Cruz says might come into this state to get behind him, this guy has a shot at winning. On the other side is James Tallarico, who's this generational talent, who is raising a ton of money, who's connecting with communities as he travels the state, who's fighting for things that people care about, making sure that teachers can afford to teach school, that folks can see a doctor, that we end the corruption in D.C. and here in Texas. So I like our odds in this state, and as you played that clip in South Carolina, and as you talked about the experience in Maine, I really like our odds across the country. It's not a done deal. It's not a slam dunk. There's a lot of work left to do, but the conditions look pretty damn good right now.
I was in Austin on primary night, and I saw the enthusiasm at Telluride headquarters and at UT as I walked very long lines of people who were there, many of them to support Tellurico, Rocket 2 for sure. On the other side, though, I don't get the sense, just from watching it now from afar, that level of enthusiasm is there. For Paxton, Trump has this whole strategy, and he's playing it out in South Carolina as well, to try to get people to go out because of him, not because of the candidate. Let me just play you this clip of what he said about South Carolina. I want to get a reaction from
the problem that we have is they say that Trump does great when he's on the ballot, but when he's not on the ballot, his people don't come and they don't vote. So what I really want you to do is pretend, please, that I'm on the ballot. Just come and vote. It's so important.
Just pretend, Beto, that Donald Trump is on the ballot. Is that going to work in Texas or South Carolina?
That's music to my ears. Please, everyone pretend that Donald Trump is on the ballot. This is the guy who took us into yet another endless war in the Middle East. Right. The guy who's driving up the prices on everything you buy, especially gas and diesel here in the state of Texas. And he and Ken Paxton are the poster children of corruption in America today. I'll tell you who is on the ballot, though, Jacob, in Texas. There are 150 Democrats running for 150 state house seats. First time this has happened since 1972. Same for the state Senate. All 38 congressional races have a Democrat in it. And our group, Powered by People, we just left the University of Texas at Arlington, where we were meeting, registering, and personally staying in touch with students out there, hundreds of them. It's 108 degrees in Arlington, Texas today, and we both had the volunteers out there under the sun and the students who can connect the dots to what's happening in this country in this election on November 3rd, and you better believe they're going to be out there to vote for James Tallarico, for Gina Hinojosa, for Vicki Goodwin, for every single Democrat up and down that ballot. Texas is going to shock the country. A lot of work still left to do, but we're out there getting it done.
It is so true that the enthusiasm on the down ballot races is so important. I remember being in Texas in 2018, going around with Gina Ortiz-Jones. There were so many campaigns that were happening as you were running, and you came within, I think it was 3 percentage points of beating ultimately Ted Cruz. I was thinking about that today. What do you say to Democrats around the country who sort of say, you know, we watched this happen once, and I'm not going to get my hopes up again this time around?
No place can break your heart like Texas, right? But no place has the outsized impact on our national politics and really the direction of this country like this state does. I mean, it can be the hothouse for extremism, the most obscene abortion ban in America with no exception for rape, incest, or the life of the mother. 4 years after Uvalde, no laws changed to make it any less likely that any other child is killed in their classroom, the least insured state in the country. That can be the future of America, or we elect James Tallarico, we get behind these great Democrats up and down the ballot, and we change the future not just of this state, but of America. And I think it's very possible. It's never been more possible than it is in this year. And I'll tell you what, when I ran in 2018, there was a young, unknown challenger for a state house seat named James Tallarico, who won an upset victory, as did Colin Allred against Pete Sessions in North Texas. So I think all of these candidates running at the same time, all these great groups and volunteers who are out there getting behind them and registering voters, this is really what it takes. But there's still a lot of work to do over the next 70 days. So I want to make sure everyone knows that though the conditions are favorable, though we have outstanding candidates, and though it looks good from here, we know there's going to be a lot of trickery from the Trump administration controlling the mailing list, potentially from the USPS. There might be other forms of election interference. So we have to work our absolute hearts out over the next 70 days to make sure that we come out on top.
I'm sure in the next 70 or so days, I'll see you down there out and about somewhere. I'll be there, and I know you will be too. Beto O'Rourke, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right, good to see you. Coming up, everybody, a closer look in Gary, Indiana. Thousands of people have been left without power for nearly 2 weeks. That's coming up next. August 11th, a massive storm blew through the city of Gary, Indiana. 90-mile-an-hour winds. They took down trees and they crippled the city's power infrastructure. Over the weekend, just this weekend, about 30,000 of the city's 67,000 residents were still without power. Today is August 24th, nearly 2 weeks after that storm, and as many as 10,000 of the city's residents still do not have electricity. As The Guardian reports, the outages have led to, quote, food lines, closed businesses, dead phones, no schools, spoiled food, dirty clothes, and dry gas pumps. MS Now reporter Nnamdi Igwanwu joins me now from Gary, Indiana. Nnamdi, I've been watching you report from there all day. As the sun sets, let us know what the latest is on the ground.
Yeah, so, we're still here in Gary. Several thousand people still don't have power. And the area of the town we're in now is sort of in the south side neighborhood of the city. All of these houses you see around me, not a single one of them have gotten their power back yet. And the reason why for that, you don't need to look too far. You can see right here the issues. You have in storms on August 11th that were so intense in Gary here in particular that it knocked down poles and knocked down power lines. And as a result, because of just how bad things were here in Gary, NIPSCO, the utility servicer, is saying it's just taking them extra long to get to Gary to access these poles and to issue these repairs. Now, there's a couple issues with that. The governor of the state, Mike Braun, has been very critical of that utility provider, arguing that they have had more than enough time, more than enough enough resources to restore power throughout the entire state, including in Gary. To facilitate that process, he has deployed the National Guard, which has been around town helping clear some of these pathways so that that utility provider can come in. That's in addition to another utility provider, ComEd, joining in to help NIPSCO restore power throughout this city. But to be clear, the many people we've spoken to on this block are telling us that they've had to throw out food. One mom of 2 autistic kids told me today she not only is worried about her kids for not being able to be in school and be focused, but she hasn't been working. So there also is a financial stress that they have to navigate. Financial stress that has only been worsened, as some told me today that they're already getting notices from that utility provider, NIPCO, for their bill, despite not having any power. So this is certainly a moment of uncertainty, of stress, of frustration, and a lot of economic pain for people in this community, one that is already among the more lower income neighborhoods in this state.
In a situation you would think could be very well life-threatening as well. Nnamdi Nwonwu, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I want to turn now to Eddie Melton. He has been the mayor of Gary, Indiana since 2024. And Freddie Gibbs is a Grammy Award-winning rapper born and raised in Gary. They both join me now. Mayor, let me start with you. The federal government, where has the federal government been? I believe that you spoke with the President of the United States today. Is that accurate? And if so, what did he say?
Yes, that's accurate. I did speak with the president along with U.S. Senator Jim Banks in regards to next steps. Myself, I signed an executive order declaring a natural disaster in Gary within the first 24 to 48 hours of the disaster. The governor followed that. Then we're waiting on the president to make those next steps so that FEMA resources can flow into the city. Right now, we have about 5,000 residents still without power. I've been talking with the utility company, urging them that it is too long. We're not trying to wait until tomorrow. I'm hoping that we get a majority of those folks up by tonight.
Are you getting what you need, Mr. Mayor, from the federal government and from the president?
Right now, I'm hoping that we'll get a clearance that those FEMA dollars will get approved and unlock that money. Right now, the governor has already appropriated funding. Individuals that live in the city of Gary in Northwest Indiana can call 211 and access $5,000 just to start getting that the repairs to their home fixed. But we need as much resources as possible, as the state has provided the National Guard, as your reporter mentioned before. But right now, we're definitely in need of more assistance and more resources.
Freddie Gibbs, I'm so grateful to you for being here tonight. I know that you're overseas on tour right now, but I heard the mayor say on Friday at his news briefing that you've put financial support behind your hometown. Tell me why this is so important to you. What's your relationship to Gary, Indiana? What does this place mean to you?
I mean, really, to be honest, I'm here in support of Eddie. I don't have boots on the ground yet because, as you said, I'm on tour, but you know, Eddie's been there every day. Eddie's been doing everything from running the city to cutting down trees. So I'm really just here in support of him. He was the man for the job. That's why we elected him. And, you know, in this time of need, this really makes real leaders. And like I said, you know, everything I'm doing right now is just, I'm in lock and step with the mayor. And, you know, we're just trying to just, you know, come together and do some things to really bring the situation to light. Because, I mean, if you really think about it, this isn't just a storm problem for August. This is a infrastructure problem that Gary has. You know, I just think that this storm and, you know, and what's going on right now is just really shedding light on it. You know what I mean? But I mean, like, I think that we've had these issues for such a long time because I feel like we have an archaic type of, you know, electrical system with the company that we have providing power to our city. So, you know, I think that, you know, some changes need to be implemented there. But like I said, right now, I'm just in support of Eddie and whatever he needs me to do.
Freddie, through your music and your art, you have talked for a long time about what it was like to grow up in Gary. And I think that there's a lot of people that are looking at this situation and they see a systemic pattern of majority black cities being ignored in a time of crisis. Is that how you see what's going on?
Correct, definitely. You know, like you said, I grew up in Gary. Definitely a majority black city. Every teacher, every police officer, every person that I, you know, ever, you know, encountered or grew up with was black, you know. So, you know, seeing the lack of resources from the, you know, the state and the government come our way, this isn't really anything new. You know, I think that the storm is just like I said, shedding light on it. But, you know, I think that we've been needing resources. We've been needing extra, funding for certain things and youth programs and things of that nature. I don't think everything really started with this storm, but I love how Eddie is reacting to it and taking the reins and really, making a push to put people in the position they need to be in and get their power back.
And Freddie, the Mayor Melton spoke today, he said, to President Trump, and Gary is waiting on the federal government and FEMA basically to act here. What would you say to the President of the United States about what's happening and what he needs to know about Gary, Indiana? Freddie?
I mean, I'm going to reiterate my point once again. Gary is one of those underfunded, underprivileged cities that, needs attention from the not just, the state government, but the national government as well. When I heard that Eddie talked to Trump today, I kind of giggled a little bit, and I was just like, oh man, here we go.
Why?
But because like I said, this isn't a problem that started with the storm. We are a predominantly black city that, tends to get ignored, when it comes to certain things. And, and like I said, and I'm glad that we got a mayor like Eddie that can start to shed light on these things. I would say the previous administrations probably didn't do that, and it's just sad that it takes a national crisis, for us to, get some type of attention whatsoever.
Mayor Melton, what does Gary need in the I mean, time is of the essence in the most literal sense here. In the next 24 hours, what do you need the most?
I need the power restored. I mean, there's nothing more important right now than that, other than making sure that once power is restored, that we can help replenish the food that people lost in the refrigerators. I don't care if it's someone that was low income or a middle class worker. Everyone needs to be compensated. We've been demanding from the utility company that they prohibit any disconnections after the storm, that they credit customers for the duration of the outage, and other things. Figure out how do we harden the infrastructure. This wind was at the highest when it hit Gary, 99 miles an hour. Now, this is the 14th storm we've had this year, 6 storms last year. So we only anticipate more weather conditions that's going to cause our infrastructure to be further tested. So we're calling on everyone, all of the resources to make sure that that happens. Right now, individuals can go to gary.gov/storm recovery, and we partner with our Legacy Foundation, our community foundation here in the county, and you can make a donation. We're helping individuals repair their weatherheads, because if neighborhoods come on with power tonight, and an individual who owns a home or renting a home, if that weatherhead is stripped off your home, they're still going to be without power. And folks can't afford $800 to $1,500 to repair a weatherhead. So we have to step up as a local community, and we're helping to fund that. And so donations that Freddie and Glenn Robinson, Denise Williams, all these notable Gary Ice and Darius Garland is making right now is helping get us by. These are Gary born and raised individuals that love their city. And we're going to get through this. Gary was on the comeback before this storm. It's just setting us back just a little bit. But I guarantee you, Gary's going to be the greatest comeback story in American history.
Well, that's for sure. If Freddie Gibbs says that. Go ahead, Freddie. We got to go, but go ahead, Freddie, real quick.
My bad. Much love to Trader Truth and Keith Lee and all the guys that came from outside of Gary and showed love and came in and really came together with us to do stuff. Like I said, I haven't got boots on the ground yet, but I've been seeing the things that they've been doing. Much love to the hip hop community. Like I said, Trader Truth, we love you for that. Keith Lee, thank you. Pastor Eric Boone, giving love to everybody out there in Gary, man. Much love. Pray for the city.
Freddie Gibbs and Mayor Eddie Melton, please keep us posted with the latest developments, and appreciate you both very much for being here tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us.
You got it. Still to come, California's Attorney General Rob Bonta on all of the ways that his state is fighting the rogue White House in court, including the Supreme Court decision today. That's coming up next.
An official message from Medicare. When you're turning 65 and it's time to enroll in Medicare, it's an unfamiliar step, but with the right guidance, you find your rhythm. It helps to know where to turn. Medicare.gov. There you can learn when
Trump to proceed for now with his order to restrict mail-in voting before the midterm elections. Donald Trump, I should remind you, himself frequently votes by mail. But his effort to restrict mail-in ballots, it is all part of his plan to interfere with the midterm elections because he knows there's a chance Republicans will lose control of Congress. The Supreme Court's 6-3 ruling, it fell along ideological lines. The conservative majority paused the lower court ruling that blocked key parts of Donald Trump's executive order limiting mail-in ballots. Democratic officials from 23 different states and Washington, D.C. had sued to block that order back in April. They argued that it is, quote, as unprecedented as it is unconstitutional because, quote, the Constitution assigns primary responsibility for federal elections to the states. But today, the conservative justices agreed with the Trump administration that it, quote, is likely to suffer irreparable harm from the lower court's injunction. And as for the states who sued, well, the court majority said they could, quote, not demonstrate that they were sufficiently harmed by voting rules that had not yet taken effect. Rob Bonta is the state attorney general of California. He is among those who sued to block Donald Trump's order on mail-in ballots, and he joins me now. Mr. Attorney General, thank you for being here. I would love your reaction to the Supreme Court order today.
Pleasure. Of course, we're disappointed. It's another order on the emergency docket that the court is inclined to engage in more actively than ever. But the good news is it's procedural only. It's only about the timing of our lawsuit, not the underlying merits or substance. The court basically decided that our challenge was not ripe or not ready yet. And now that there is a final rule issued by the federal government, it is ripe and ready. So in the coming days, we'll be filing a lawsuit to address the substance of the executive order which we believe is blatantly unconstitutional for the reasons you just set forth. The Elections Clause of the U.S. Constitution says that states and to a degree Congress, but not the president, determine the time, place, and manner of elections. And this is the president trying to dictate how elections occur in states throughout the country. And it's unconstitutional. I look forward to prevailing in court.
Break it down for me a little more, if you could, Mr. Attorney General. This new lawsuit will move forward, you say, on the grounds that what the president's trying to do with mail-in voting is blatantly unconstitutional. Can you walk me through it?
Sure. So the court basically said, and we made these same arguments in the challenge that the U.S. Supreme Court just ruled on today on the emergency docket, but they just said, hey, it's too early. You brought the case a little too early. The final rule is not final yet. It doesn't exist. So you have to wait till there's a final rule issued by the federal government. The federal government issued that final rule on Friday. So we're basically going to bring an identical case with the identical theories to challenge the final rule that is in place. And it advances a cause of action which is based on our U.S. Constitution and the fact that the U.S. Constitution gives the states the authority and the duty to determine the time, place, and manner of elections, and it gives the president zero authority. And the president's executive order here is him trying to exercise authority he doesn't have. We've struck down other executive orders that the president has issued in the past, including those that try to ban from being counted vote-by-mail ballots that are timely cast but arrive after Election Day, and that try to impose additional restrictions on what eligible voters need to show in order to exercise their fundamental right to vote, the right from which all of the rights flow. And so we've succeeded in the past, and we do expect to be successful here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea of the executive order that the president put forward in March and then you sued in April and the lower court, paused, is that the Department of Homeland Security would come up with a list basically of citizens in a particular state. The Postal Service then comes up with a different list, and the president would like them to cross-reference those to prevent a certain population from using mail-in ballots. Do I have that right? And if that does go forward, what happens ultimately? How does that affect voters in the midterm elections?
Yeah, you do have that basically right. I like to describe it as a filter that the federal government uses to filter out vote-by-mail ballots that are either going to a voter for consideration and use, or after a voter has cast a ballot back to the official polling station, and the federal government gets to determine which ballots move through the U.S. Postal Service and which don't. They hold a list. They create the list. They determine who's on the list and who's not, and they can pull out your ballot after you, as an eligible voter, have voted if you're not on their list. So that creates a lot of harm to our states. One, it forces us to use time, resources, and money to adhere to this new approach. But more importantly, it harms us, our sovereign authority, our constitutionally granted authority to determine how elections are carried out. And we believe that we will be successful when we sue.
We probably only have about 30 seconds left, but I did want to ask you about another case that you've taken the lead on, and this is the lawsuit that blocks Paramount's purchase or attempt to block Paramount's purchase of Warner Brothers Discovery. You sued. You and I have talked about your concerns regarding the merger of CBS and CNN, but in particular, I want to ask you about you were going to hold settlement talks with Paramount, but canceled the meeting. I think that was supposed to happen today. Why? Why did you cancel the meeting?
Yeah, they were not engaged in the way that is appropriate. They were not following the rules of the road that all other attorneys in the United States are able to follow, and that is they were leaking lies to the press as they were engaged in confidential settlement discussions. And those are supposed to be confidential. You're not supposed to be running to the press. You're definitely not supposed to be lying to the press. We need a confidential setting where we can trust each other, be productive, constructive, maybe even creative to resolve a case. And they violated those rules, and that was unacceptable. That wasn't going to fly. So we pulled down the meeting today. And if they can get their ducks in a row and put a lid on these leaks and stop the lies, then we're happy to meet with them.
All right, well, we'll be watching for that. California Attorney General Rob Bonta, I'm glad to talk to you tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Don't go anywhere, everybody, because it is Monday night.